So my name is Nyla and I'm here with...
Rakesh.
Can you spell your first name and last name for me, please?
Yes, Rakesh, R-A-K-E-S-H, Sharma, S-H-A-R-M-A.
Thank you very much. We're here in West London's film studio and we are conducting an oral history interview about Southall's South Asian film history. So I'd like to start with asking you about your background and where you're from.
I am from Delhi, India. I was born in Delhi and came over at the age of 12 to join my father.
Okay.
Came with my family, yeah.
Did you come to Southall or...?
Came direct into Southall, yes.
Okay. What was it like growing up in Delhi? How did you feel?
Well, it was fun because we lived in a joint family house, large family. And father was a businessman. He used to do business trips. So several years he was in West Indies, Kenya and all that. So we were but we were living in a joint family. But it was lovely, enjoyed.
Whereabouts in Delhi did you...
It was near the Red Fort, in the old part of Delhi 6 area,
Yes.
near Old Delhi. Yeah, my school was quite nearby Red Fort as well. So we were living in a quite good neighborhood, very large, friendly atmosphere.
To Southall, what is your earliest memory that you remember of Southall?
I think coming to join our father, I actually ended up at the Tilbury docks. Well, Tilbury we came by sea because Mum always wanted to travel by sea. It was a cold, grey morning, very big shock. And I think that was just the finishing of winter months in February. We landed here in February. And the snow was still little mountains of snow, and that was quite new for us because never seen snow in our lives anyway. But it was different, very different.
How did you feel? Was you missing home? Or?
Oh yes, I think the first year or so, always referring back to if only, the hot climate, the friendly neighborhood, bazaars as we had them. And this was very quiet town. And very few Asian people around at the time, very few. And if we did meet the odd one outside, well, the odd ones, we were so happy to sort of say hello and how are you and everything, have a little conversation with them if possible. So it was very different, but eye-opening.
Did you like it or was you a bit weary?
I think as children, we were excited as well. Started school fairly soon and meeting up with different people. It was quite intriguing, terrifying at times, but thinking back on it, I wouldn't want to change it for anything now. It was a learning experience, I think. Learning experience, for me anyway. Even if they did speak in slang, I wouldn't have understood at that age because I was only 12 when I arrived. And fortunately, I had gone to a English-speaking school, but I couldn't talk much at all. I could read and write, but I couldn't speak or converse. So that took me a while. But I think it was my sheer determination to really get to grips with the language.
Did you find it easy or did you find it kind of difficult for that transition?
It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was very difficult, but it was trying, yes, it was. And I said I was very, very determined. I really wanted to tackle it because not able to understand people, what they were saying about you, was hard. But I think to come over from Delhi into London, so we thought, we were expecting white people. We knew that we were coming into a community of white people. But I think what the shock was, some people were very, very nice, and others were very, very reserved. And even though you couldn't understand much of what they were saying, but I think you could understand bit by expressions what they were.
Were they very negative?
A bit, not all, not all. No. Some were very, very helpful, who really went out of their way to make it easier for us, the transition that age, yes. I think I was put in a reception class to start off with for the first term. And I can never forget my teacher in there. She was very, very good and very helpful. So people like her were very, very, they helped, really made it easier for us. And if you were ready to learn, introduced me to library, took us on a first trip to library, Southall Library, and from there I was hooked. 3-4 times a day after school I would pop into library, pick up books. Whereas people were reading books for their own age, the white people, children I'm talking about, I started from the children's section and just read.
How did you find the books?
Very, very interesting. I really got hooked on those. And I just progressed from there upwards.
Okay. Have you ever visited a cinema in Southall?
Many a time, because I think I was the eldest of 3 children. And both my brother and I, we were a bit of a cinema buff anyway. And there was only one cinema by the Dominion at the time, ballroom as they called it. And it was fairly easy because adult ticket was only bought. The man of the house, or one adult ticket was bought, and the family went with. So on Saturday afternoons, matinee shows, my brother and I would just go to the cinema, and if there was a family going, we would just tag along and just watch black and white movies, and absolutely loved it. We got into some hot water a couple of times, but really liked and watched many, many movies.
Did you all kind of like dress up and?
Not really. I think as we were. No, I don't think emphasis was put on dressing up, because I thought we looked fairly okay, and on our smart casual clothes, so to speak, yes. Yeah. I do remember seeing quite a few black and white ones. There was one Panjabi film I saw, I can't remember the name of it, but I'd never seen a Panjabi film before, so that was quite good. But some of the names, no, I can't, not at offhand, but I have seen. And when the color came in, color films, that was later on. But yes, black and white films, every weekend we would go and see a picture.
Who did you go with? Was it all your family, or?
Yes, my parents took us sometimes, and if they were busy, not able to, like I said, my brother and I, we would just go along, because it was very safe for children to go out that time. As children, we felt safe to play outside and go out, venture up to the cinemas, and nobody worried about you or anything like that. No. I think it's not safe for children to go unaccompanied nowadays, no. As long as parents or someone, adult, escorts them, takes them, brings them back.
What would be the age bracket? As you said, how old was you, 12?
I was 12.
Yes.
Yeah, I was 12, and my brother was 10. So 10 and 12. But we were able to go by ourselves, yeah. We played out on the street for long hours, late into the evening. I think they are family orientated. And I think, especially the old black and white ones, they were trying to take you back away from reality, fantasy world, so to speak, dreamland. And I think some film producer did bring a lot of fantasy into it, the west side of West culture. And that was something interesting to watch as well, to enjoy. The dances, the songs. And if you didn't cry in a film, the film wasn't good enough. So you had to cry. There were lovely, sort of very heartfelt songs in films anyway at the time. The films were basically were on songs anyway. Yeah. Not much storyline if you think about it. You got very emotional. You got really carried away with the film and the artists in there. Mm.
Do you remember a film where you've been emotional? You've kind of shed a tear because it was that emotional? It's a good film.
Yes, quite a few. There was one, the old Meena Kumari one, I think. I think that was later in 70s perhaps. Chandan Ka Palna. That's woman who doesn't have a baby of her own, and hence the Palna and a baby, Chandan Ka Palna. Very, very emotional songs, and I cried quite a lot, yes. I think with her, most of her films, we cried. 9 out of 10, we cried. If there was a family going in there and we tagged along, no one minded that at all. They said, oh, come on, children, yeah, come along with us. So we just went in. And we would come home and discuss about the film, talk about it, and then perhaps discuss songs and try our singing ourselves anyway, to learn songs and everything, yeah. I think it brought people together. It did bring people together. Well, films, I think the most classic example is film Mother India. That is the Mother India, as the title says. You can't get away from that. Our culture, our society, our people, the up and down of the society there, the corruption and illiteracy in villages. So it does bring it all home and really makes your blood boil at times. In fact, you want to try and do something. I think, yes, definitely. I think coming from a close-knit family, you only know the close people around you, and what's going on outside, you're not aware. It's only watching these things, the social stigmas, and female child, and the associations with that. That came later anyway, but these were things all new to me as well, to all of us anyway. But it did bring a lot of things together. We wanted to talk and discuss and wanted to go and see the latest films coming up, the new. I think to these films, only the South Asian people went there. I can't really remember seeing any white people going to those Indian films, not at those times, no. People didn't really mix well at the time, in those days, no. That was rather sad if you think about it. People kept their community separate. But on Saturday mornings, children's matinee shows and all that, we all went. That's where the community met, all different kinds of people. But there wasn't all that much of connection at the time. It became later on. Lack of cohesion, it started off with the school playground, actually. Well, taught me a lesson or two at the time. I suppose when we were doing sports, there were teams selected. One of the girls would select netball, whatever we were playing. She wanted a number of people on the team. And 9 out of 10, the Asian girls were always the last to be picked up. Always the last, 9 out of 10. Because, well, naturally, those white girls would only pick up their friends. And then when the remaining Asian girls, they all came right at the end. And that was always, always the case. And I think that was my first video came up. Cinema sort of died down a bit. Most weekends, it'll be 3 films over the weekend, and we all had to squeeze them in. Or some nights you're watching in. So always, always, always watching them for weeks on end. Days on end, sorry. Really watched a lot of those films, whatever came around. And if I had missed the old ones, we would watch those as well, over and over again. Because it was a family outing then. And by that time, in the 70s, there were stalls there. You could buy samosas and things. And so it was more a picnic thing. So you would go and buy that in break time and everything. And that's when the family outing came. Yeah, so we went on a family outing, went to see a good movie, had something to eat in between, and then maybe went out for a meal afterwards or something, yeah. So that's when it became to family outing. As soon as there was a break in the film, or you wanted to put a stop there, pause it, put the kettle on, and have some snacks or something, then come back to the film as well. Same thing. Again, sitting down with the family to watch. I think very rarely you watched it by yourself. Very small family. In fact, the film when I was courting with my husband, most dates were spent in the cinema each weekend. That's where we would go. So that's where we would go out for our date, so to speak. It was arranged marriage. So these were our getting to know each other, courting period. So Indian movies were the norm. Way of bonding, to getting to know each other. And I think we did that for about 6 months. I think even as a youngster, I felt our parents were differentiating between girls and boys. Both my brothers were allowed to have love marriages, but the girls had their marriages arranged. And I thought that was very unfair. But then that was the norm anyway, yes. And I didn't want that. I wanted to keep it very similar to the boys and girls. Well, I can't really define that because I've only got 2 girls, so I can't say how would I have behaved. But I like to think that I would have asked them to go for love marriages, and I did. Mine was arranged, but lucky my husband and I, we got to know each other. We had a fairly smooth marriage. Unfortunately, he passed at a very early age anyway. But we had good marriage. We decided at very early in our marriage that we will not have any arguments or fights in front of the children now. Because having seen that in my childhood, I didn't want to go down that road. So we stuck to that bargain. Yeah, we never had many fights. No, I don't think we had any fights. So the children were brought up in a good family atmosphere. And I wanted them to learn to respect their partners, get to know their partners like we did, and have a normal life outside.
Your experience?
I think Southall was a very small town, because coming from Delhi, it's a very large city. But I think my father was we were lucky in that respect that father wanted to take us out every weekend. He really wanted to show us. He took us all over London. Each weekend he would be planning a visit wherever. I don't think there is a seaside he didn't cover at all. So we were always out and about. He wanted us to see everything. So we got to see a lot of London and all the surrounding seasides as well. But I think because growing up in here, you tend to forget about India after a while. Because I didn't go to India till I think way back until I got married and after my first daughter was born. So the first several years of my life, I grew up here, and this became my home. And it has been ever since. And I can't think of it any different way at all. I love Southall. But I think my first terrible experience was my brother and I had to go over to the chemist to buy something. I think it was our first year there. And Mum or Dad said, go and buy a jar of Vicks. So we both went over to Sherry's chemist over on High Street or South Road, wherever. And we said, can we have a bottle of Vicks, please? Or something, we said. And he said, sorry, what do you mean? A bottle of Vicks. I think we must have been using the word, whatever the Hindi word was at the time. I can't even remember. And both my brother and I were saying, Vicks! And then I had to spell it for them in the end, and I think they realized that was embarrassing for me, both of us anyway. But it was difficult. I think that's my only thing I can remember. I've never forgotten that. But in our minds, we were both right. We were saying the right way, just because they couldn't understand it. I think there was another experience in the playground, I think, my very, very early stages. And we were playing outside or something. And somebody said, can I do something? And I wanted to use that sentence, can I something? And they were playing a game, and I didn't know anything about the game. I couldn't play, I'd never played, but I wanted to use that sentence. So I said, can I go first, please? I said it slowly, can I go first, please? They said, yes. I mean, I was out at the first instance, but I wanted to use that sentence so that I was able to speak. That's, I think, my very earliest memory of conversing starting the topic. So these I've never forgot. I am from Punjabi background, yes, but in Delhi we didn't speak much Punjabi. Spoke little bit, not much. So when I went into school, a lot of the girls were from Punjab area, and I couldn't understand their Punjabi. So they said, oh, something in slang, which I didn't understand at the time, that she doesn't understand, she doesn't speak. So then I went home that night and I asked my landlady, Auntie, what does that word mean? It was a slang, it was a root word. And she said, this. I said, well, that girl swore at me then. So the next day, silly girl that I was, I went and told the class teacher, Miss, this girl called me this name. But I think it was a slang word. But again, at the time, I hadn't, to me, it felt very rude. How dare she calls me that? Southall changed over the years because more and more people came in. When, I think in late 60s and early 70s, the Kenyan and Ugandan refugees came in as well. They were more business people, and that's where the corner shops were set up. More and more shops were set, and a lot of girls coming from there came into mainstream classes, joined us in our 4th and 5th year of our secondary classes. And I think their parents being business people, and more business flourished. Fabric shops, suit shops, sari shops, and all that. And I think it worked out for the betterment of the town. But that only meant that more people came in, white people started going out, because they sold their houses to go out. So that's where Asian people bought their house. Even our house, my father only managed to buy a house within less than 3 years of us arriving, joining him here. And it was on the other side of Southall Broadway, where it was very quiet, residential area only at the time, small trading estate at the back. But mortgages were very difficult to get by at the time. And I think his solicitors advised him. So instead of using his surname, C.P. Sharma, he changed it to C.P. Sharman. So in order to get his mortgage. So, I mean, we found that very, very difficult to understand, but Dad said, no, this is, so instead of Chandra Prakash Sharma, he became Charles Parker Sharman. Only for paperwork only, but that's how it was in order to get a mortgage at that time. So having bought that house in that area, nice area, quiet residential area, there were a couple of factories at the back. And it was easy for Mum to work in a biscuit and cake factory. There was a factory. So the employment was very easy, just around the corner on your street, so you didn't have to travel far anyway, unlike before as well. And hence, more and more people started setting up their own business. Milk dairies were bought, Sikh temples were set up, Indian temples, Hindu mandirs were set up as well, mosques. Everything started flourishing. And I think that was good for Southall community because they were mixing, but there were only Asian people there. The white people were going out because they were selling their houses for profit, in fact. Well, why wouldn't anybody? And they moved out, and Asian people decided to stick together. And I think there's always, as they say, unity in numbers, being together. They felt secure with each other. And Heathrow being around the corner, a lot of people were working there as well. That made it easier for the town to flourish, people to travel, commute easily as well. I think the cinema has changed now, yes. I think the new streamer director, not the mainstream, but the series directors, they're bringing in new ideas and things in films. And I'm very much for that. I'm very happy. They're bringing in the effects of rape and that so forth, child marriages, killing of female babies, that sort of thing, prostitution. Again, this is something that wasn't the case before, no. But now all this new cinema is really, 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 And I'm all for it. I think it's really, any nice, good, decent film is worth watching. I think recently I saw a film, only a few weeks back. It's a silly name, it's just called Toilet.
Okay.
It's a very basic, essential necessity. But out in the suburbs, out in the countrysides of India, women still have to go out. They all have to go out. And that's not acceptable at all. Why? It's easy for men. Women out on an errand like that, open to all kinds of abuse. And this is why they are trying to publicize the fact that no, more needs to be done. And the government is, that's what I came across that film, and I was very happy, and I recommend it. I said, please go and visit, watch that movie. Things like that need to be watched. I mean, there's still some aspects of it there, yes, but it has really been watered down, because over the years, over the past 50 years, India has developed far more than, not always in the right direction, of course. There are certain things that they're still far behind. I mean, I couldn't face the fact of going to live there permanently now, no. I don't think I would tackle their corruption, sorry. But that just, I don't think anybody living here can manage that at all, no. Their way of life is very different. Children brought up here are forthright, straightforward. And there is, I think, double standards there, which is difficult for us to tackle, take on. But with the new films and everything, all this, I think they're going far better off. They're doing far better than some of us. In fact, some of our community is still about 30, 40 years behind, whereas they moved on. We're still back where we left years ago. That's the distinct difference. But I think people were trying to escape from their mundane routine of lives, yeah. So that was their escape from the reality.
Is that what you used it for?
Yes, it was for us as well. Completely different, away from songs, dances, and everything, yeah. I said, like, from the age of 12 coming up here, I have enjoyed my life. It's not always been easy at all. Not always been easy. But things have progressed quite smoothly. Not always the way we wanted anyway. I mean, over the years I've seen changes from Asian community to mixed community, now different kind of mixed community as well. And prejudice of all sorts. But that became reality to us. And then people were strong-minded enough to do something about it. And groups were set up to try and combat that problem as well. And I think that helped everybody in the long run.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for your time, taking your time out here and sharing your stories. So that is the end of our oral history interview. We're here at West London Film Studios.
Thank you, Nala. I've enjoyed having this chat.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you know that Make a Difference Entertainment is a charity?
Help us to support underrepresented talent by connecting with us on our social media.